Right, so the last two elements that we're going to cover, we're going to do some plasterboarding. And everybody thinks plasterboarding, or anybody can do plasterboarding. It's not the case. If you want to do it to the standards, there's a certain way that you set your boards out and the way you draw your profile lines. And that's what we're going to explain when we go over to the dry lining area. So the tools that we're going to be using are obviously tape measure. We need a pencil for drawing the profile lines, a Stanley knife, got a surf form that we use, and also one of the most important tools is a T-square. This will enable us to bring all our profile lines bang into line, so everything's symmetrical, and all the screws go in at the right spacings, and all the screws are going directly into the studs. Finally, we're going to move on to the finishing on the plasterboard. We've done the finishing on solid walls. That application you can actually use on plasterboards, but the type of finish we're going to explain today is a tape and fill, which is a direct decoration. It's a seamless finish, so it's a little bit, well, it's totally different to applying the skimming. And basically what that is once it's plasterboarded neat, the way we've described the mechanical fixing, because you're doing it to the standards, then you have to fill the joints, fill the screw holes, do your external corners. When you're doing it to the standards, what we need to do is, there's two types of joint tape that we use. A lot of people do use the standard fibre tape, which is what you use when you're applying your skimmings. It's a pretty good product, but on a high specification job, on your tape and fill finishes, they will always go for paper tape to cover the joints rather than fibre tape. The reason being for that, all buildings move and flex. So when they're moving and flexing, you're going to have a little bit of movement on your plasterboard. If they move too much, you're going to get cracks on your joints, and that's why you're putting the various tapes over it. Believe it or not, paper tape is stronger than fibre tape. The reason being is that has got, I'll just cut a little bit off. As you can see, it's got individual strands on it, so if the building starts to move and flex, it can start to pull them apart. Yeah. When you've got paper tape, just rip a little bit off. Stronger. I wouldn't have thought that until it was explained to me. Well, that's so if you on a lot of high specification jobs and you're doing the seamless finish, that's the tape you want to be using, and it's a lot more labour intensive than applying the fibre tapes. But I'll do a demonstration on this later on. And then once you've got your coats applied, then you need to get the seamless finish, and that's where the sanding element comes in. So when we come to get the finishes, we've got some pre-prepared areas where we're going to demonstrate the sanding techniques. These are the tools that we're going to be using. We've got the electronic drywall sander, which you can see it's electronic, and it's going back into a vacuum bag there. That's called an LEV. It's called a local exhaust ventilation unit. As you can see, it's an orbital sander, and you will be able to demonstrate it more when we actually come to do the task. So that's what, if you're a professional taper and jointer, you will have one of them, but they're not cheap, they're quite expensive to buy. And then you've got here what we call a pole sander. So as you can see with the electric sander, you can a lot of the time you can do the sanding of your joints on your ceilings directly from the floor. If you haven't got the professional sander there, then what you want is what they call a pole sander, which allows you to reach up and sand at high levels, sand your joints at high levels. Yeah, and then basically after that we did have an hand sander. It's here. You've got an hand sander as well, yeah. So that you can use that to clean the joints out. As in all these elements, especially when we come to a sanding unit, it is really important that you have the PPE on. So when you're doing the sanding, we will have the glasses on, we'll have the gloves on, but most importantly, we'll have the dust mask on, because we don't want to be breathing in those microscopic pieces of dust, because we're going to, we'll finish up with lung damage. So that's the basic talk through the tools that we're going to use today. I did just miss one element off when we're doing the mechanical fixing. That's a board lifter, which you'll see demonstrated. That'll lift the board up into the correct position before it gets fixed. And that's basically the tools that we're going to be using today.